doing enough to protect against another Russian attack on our elections, despite warnings from America's intelligence community. So what will lawmakers do about it? Let's ask Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois, a member of the House Intelligence Committee and Appropriations Committee. What I heard Congressman, the senator, saying is, yes, they're concerned about whether the president's mind is there, whether his attention is there, but the administration is doing a lot. $380 million has been appropriated to specifically safeguard our election system and our infrastructure. What more specifically needs to be done?
Yeah, let's look back. After the Bush-Gore debacle, when our election integrity was challenged, what, 12 years ago, or more now, we spent $3.5 billion because we treasure that integrity. The decimal point is clearly in the wrong spot. I think, in addition, the fact that the president keeps calling this a hoax and a witch hunt, to a lot of folks, that means we don't need to do anything on it.
No, fair enough. But as they were suggesting, it doesn't mean that, look, the president says and tweets a lot of things. It doesn't mean that the government is not acting. So aside from saying you just want more money, tell me specifically what you're afraid foreign interference would result in at the ballot box.
Well, first, we've heard that the Russians did this, and there was unanimous approval by the intelligence community. And we heard Director Comey, I think, was the first to say they will be back. I'm going to suggest they never left. So we need to protect our election infrastructure, which probably needs at least $1.5 billion. We need training. We need new software. There are over 40 states that election equipment is so old, anti-hacking software won't even work. We have 13 states that currently don't even have a paper trail. So if we wanted to audit to find out what happened, we wouldn't be able to do that.
And that is kind of a crude and basic safeguard, right, is to be able to count votes by hand to back up if a computer system is compromised.
That's right. Homeland Security Johnson told me under my questioning before the entire committee that most entities don't even know they've been hacked. It probably takes a year and a half, 2 years before they find out. And it usually involves someone else telling them it did, like Target, which is a pretty sophisticated operation. So we're extraordinarily vulnerable. As they said, the lights are blinking red, and we're not ready.
So if you're, I suppose you would argue that the president has sent the message down the line that this is not a big enough priority by things he said or even behind the scenes. Do you feel that Homeland Security officials, do you feel like leadership in Congress has been more proactive, has been more aggressive to protect the integrity of the elections?
Unfortunately, these votes have come on party line reasons, and it just doesn't make any sense. You know, my boards of election in Illinois are Democrat and Republican, and they're telling us that they need more like $100 million themselves to safeguard against the attacks. Why does that matter? Illinois was the first state that we know was hacked by the Russians, our Board of Elections, in August of 2016.
Let me ask you more generally about this Mueller investigation and this question of obstruction of justice. It's been a big topic for us this morning as the president has tweeted that he'd like Jeff Sessions to shut this all down. Now, of course, the Attorney General does not have the ability to do that because he's recused himself. So it's the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who has that ability. So this takes on kind of the specter of the president, yelling from the cheap seats and ranting against the investigation, much to his lawyer's displeasure. This is ultimately going to be a political process. And the president has done a lot to try to undermine the investigation, its value, how it got started. If it's a question of interpretation about what the president has done in the political realm, do you think it would be a good idea to move forward to try to impeach him?
I think it's probably too soon to even contemplate that. I think the far left and the far right look at this differently. I say to both of them, let the Mueller investigation take its course. I trust him. He came into this investigation with impeccable credentials on a bipartisan basis. For us to get ahead of this makes absolutely no sense.
You may say that, Congressman, but let's be honest. I mean, going back to the Lewinsky investigation, this was always an issue of potential impeachment. You've got the president's lawyers, his former advisors, saying that November will be a referendum on impeachment. So, of course, Democrats are thinking about this and thinking about whether they should do it if they get control of the House.
I think some Democrats have been thinking about it from day one.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't make sense. I think we need to be as credible as we possibly can. I tried to protect Mueller's investigation, if only through the work of the Intel Committee and in talking in manners like this. I'm trying to get to the person out there, to your point, as a referendum, who hasn't made up their mind. I'm telling them this gentleman has credibility. I've seen evidence of conspiracy. I don't like the word collusion. Let him follow this up. We're only going to get one crack at this if your mind of impeachment. Let's do it right.
Do you think the president has gone too far? Has he really tried to impede the investigation?
I think he has co-conspirators in the White House, people I serve with, who tanked the investigation, who shut it down. On the president's side, let's remember, it's not just those tweets, right? His pressure of Comey not to go after Flynn, his firing of Comey, the talk of pardons, which appear to be messaging Manafort and Gates and others. You know, if you don't cooperate, I'll take care of you. I think the pardon of the sheriff in Arizona sends that same message.
Do you think Republican colleagues, your colleagues in the House, do they have an open mind about what the president's done in the same way that you hope voters out there will?
I think they desperately wish that this would go away, but so far all they've done is protect the president politically and legally. Who's spoken out the strongest among the Republicans? Most of them are members who are leaving office soon. Where are the profiles?
Reunite these hundreds of children who were separated from their parents at the border and are still not back together. The problem is many of those parents have been deported or cannot be located. Joining us now is the Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project and lead attorney in the ACLU's lawsuit against the government, Lee Gallant. Lee, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so today is the day that the Trump administration has to submit their plans for how they're going to find these parents and reunite these parents. And you have to as well. Why is the onus on you to come up with a plan?
Yeah, I think what the judge has ultimately determined is that if the government's left to their own devices, they're not going to find the parents or they're not going to do it quickly. So we have said, look, we just want these children back together. If there's any way we can help, we will. So we have organized NGOs all over this country and all over the world to help find these parents. All we are asking from the government is give us some information about these parents so we can find them. Right now, we have a name and a country, some addresses here or there. We don't know if the addresses are accurate. We believe the government has phone numbers. We want the phone numbers. Any information that will help us track these parents.
The last number that we had, okay, official number from the administration was 510 kids whose parents had been deported. Is that the number you have?
We've been given different numbers. We're not exactly sure how many there are.
How is that possible? How is it possible that the government is not able to give us an accurate number of how many kids are still here?
Yeah, if they gave you 510 this morning, then we're going to go with that. But the last number we got from them was 431.
Why is it all over the map?
You know, I think it's all over the map because they took these children away. They should never have taken them away in the beginning. But certainly, as the judge pointed out, they should have had a plan for tracking the parents. The judge has made clear that they had no plan. They just took these kids away and didn't track the families.
How are you ever going to find these parents?
Yeah, that's a good question, but I'm hopeful. The government, we believe, has enough information for our NGOs on the ground in Central America and here to track the parents. I can't promise that we're going to find everyone, but we're hopeful.
But I appreciate your optimism, and obviously that's what it's going to take. But if you only just have a name of a parent and maybe a town,
right?
Is that what you have? Do you even have a town?
We have some addresses now. We don't know if they're the last addresses, but we have some addresses for some of them. We believe the government has some phone numbers. We're going to have to do whatever we can. I mean, a lot of the families speak indigenous languages. We know what parts of Guatemala and Honduras that language is spoken. It's going to be tough, but we're not giving up hope, and that's why we're asking the government, give us any information you have. The more, the better.
There is a narrative that we have heard on the Trump administration side that says, well, these parents voluntarily gave up their parental rights. They left their kids here. Is that true?
We don't think that's true. If we find some parents who said, oh, I fully understood my rights and wanted to give up my child, then so be it. But if the government really believes that all 400 to 500 knowingly gave up their children, then there should be no problem with us talking to them. We doubt very much, and we know that a lot of parents were confused about what was happening.
Can you just explain what the process was? Did they present parents with paperwork in English and say, sign here on the dotted line?
We know they've been doing that now. For these parents who've already been deported, we have no idea what happened. We have no idea if they signed a form, whether they were just orally asked, do you want to leave without your children? We believe some parents thought their child would actually meet them on the plane the plane takes off, the child's not there. We have no idea what's happened with these parents who were deported. We know right now that a lot of parents are signing forms. They're presented only in English. They're coerced. They're misled. They have 2 minutes to understand their rights. It could have even...
In his entire political career, all he needs to do is get face-to-face with somebody, a reasonable person, and he can kind of talk them into his position. That's a very, very dangerous way to approach a legal situation like this one.
Laura, help me understand a few things here on what Mueller's team seems to be coming close to maybe agreeing to the president's lawyers on. And that is why they would, just help me understand, why would they agree to limit the number of obstruction questions they ask? I mean, it makes me think as a journalist,